Hey fellow skeptics, Lester the Skeptic Tank here. Going to follow up on the mechanics video for my coverage on internal versus external parts. Now, just a heads up, I normally don't demonstrate a maneuver like this, but it comes to what I had covered in my prior training with tactical response, especially when I had worked through one of their classes called The Fight. And one at least, I think four students, I think it was just I think it was just us four in that class. And the most common thing for me, don't know if it was the entire class, but I know for me, a critique throughout each evolution, each drill, was my draw sucked. And I understand part of that is because I likely had not fully ingrained those movements. And even though for something as what appears relatively simple as a draw, to pull it off under stress in the proper fashion takes more time than many of us would like to admit. And going back to the mentality, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And I'll be honest that, like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there are ways to shrimp. I'll probably demonstrate that in another video. However, same thing can be said for the basic draw. And the way I've been taught by tactical response, if my memory serves, they always talk about defeating garment. And at least when it comes to the most basic and simple and probably more foolproof ways is to use two hands. I picked up something from, I think it was Modern Samurai, and the way he demonstrated doing it with one hand. You have to really work at getting this down, but this is probably more foolproof. And then do the draw slowly and pull. And just knowing that, and part of this is getting used to, they call it reluctantly reholstered. That's the other thing too. The way I've been taught by tactical responses, your draw is going to be, at least from my understanding could always be corrected, especially for those fellow tactical response alumni, your draw is going to be faster than your reholster. That's why in my mind, they use the phrasing reluctantly reholster. And that's why I did that little maneuver with my thumb, just to kind of get a body feel. And that feeds into what I was taught, especially during the evolutions of immediate action medical. They wanted us to apply our medical equipment ideally without looking and relying more on body feel, because we're not guaranteed perfect weather. We're not guaranteed perfect conditions. And the common theme of our head being up and eyes looking forward, that is also something we have to concentrate on, both in those scenarios where we have to fight for our lives or care for ourselves or our loved ones when we use medical equipment or apply medical training. So again, with the draw, and going back to this false dichotomy of internal arts versus external, I gotta concentrate on my breathing. And then, of course, when you pull the trigger, you got, at least when I was taught to shoot, you gotta be good with your breathing also. Just with any movement, anything involving physical exertion, breathing is going to be very important. It's crucial. Now again, the debate can be said about nose in, mouth out, or both nose in, nose out. For those who are vocalists, or those who sing, at least I attended one workshop with the Sheehan family, Benedict and I believe Maria Sheehan, and I can put their information in the description, but they talk about breathing using more of the diaphragm to build up our air, and then of course as in the singing trade, of course you're going to breathe out through your mouth. It's like managing your breath, and that's something I picked up being in more than a few choir rehearsals I got to listen in on, listening to the various tips and tricks. That aside, again, going back to the draw, nice and slow. And then try not to cheat by using the camera, but again, slow, breathe, then reluctantly reholster. Using my thumb as a guide. And I know there have been many schools of thought when it comes to reluctantly reholster. So people will say, look down, and whatever people may believe, I get it, but I am of the same mindset as tactical responses. You want to keep your head up. It's like that whole thing about never take your eyes off your opponent, even as you bow, as that old scene in Enter the Dragon states. But ideally, I would work off to this. I would do that in one continuous movement. So again, I would start off, and the thing is, when it comes to doing these movements slowly, you don't want to train bad habits, and then at the same time, you don't want to you want to work in the body mechanics slowly and smoothly. So hopefully when it's at some point you'll be able to pull it off quickly, because when things hit the fan, you can't, because part of the fear about building bad habits is Well, the saying goes, train as you fight, fight as you train. Part of the slowness is that way you can mechanically develop a body feel. So ultimately, you build your way up so you can bring it out and then get that instinctive feel so you could do it without thinking. You know, as that scene in Enter the Dragon, I do not hit, it hits all by itself. So again, I guess the key thing, at least as I'm reflecting on it at this very moment, is got to work on that breathing. Because there is that, as I learned in my recovery with respect to my putting on my cassock at church, that I developed some really good feel where I could put on my cassock in a matter of a couple of minutes. Somehow I realized the maneuver I would have to utilize in order to put it on, and my fingers don't feel as they're struggling, like somehow the flow of energy in my fingers. It's more free, but it also helps to know that my heart's been in repair since my recovery and discharge. So there's that. So again, as always, leave a comment if you have questions or if you want to say, yeah, Lester, you're full of it. Don't know if I would do that, but I mainly want to demonstrate that it doesn't seem to matter what activity you're doing, whether we're talking swinging a bat, like, you know, I like to throw the term around shadow boxing, but it was funny, my mom has a knack for giving me nuggets of wisdom, and she doesn't know that. Like, she doesn't really deliberately bring it up. But I remember back in my back in the day, and I was bowling. She talked about doing shadow bowling. So in the same vein, like the shadow draw, the shadow practice, we call it dry practice. Going from the draw, doing it slow, and even reluctantly reholster, slow. But I gotta work on that breathing, like I said. So breathe, breathe, breathe. Reluctantly reholster. That kind of thing. So, alright, well, until next video, fellow skeptics, peace out, and I'll check you on the other side.